Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today, I wanted to go ahead and continue my conversation on Title Update 12.1 and looking at it from the perspective of expectations versus reality, because I would love for the conversations that we're having so far to bear fruit, and basically continue to lead to a better game and perhaps even a future in this franchise, because a lot of players, our feedback, the way we actually visualize the game, the things that we envision about the game, they seem to work, and so far it may lead to a place where the developers understand kind of the sweet spot that this game is, and be able to determine how to proceed with future ventures, maybe a future division game, maybe a year 3. We don't know what's going on yet, but I think right now, so far in the community, largely a lot of people are quite excited about this patch. A lot of people have shown that there's basically a positivity that goes when the developers in their own capacity are able to listen to their community and deliver. And this was stated in the State of the Game, I think 176, when Yannick came on the State of the Game in November and said, that the community had been very vocal about the new gen console performance, and they wanted to go ahead and do it. So this is something that was birthed from the community actually mentioning this to them. Now, another thing that did also occur in the State of the Game was kind of a scaling down of the, codename Nightmare event. Initially, at the Ubisoft Forward event early in the fall, the developers, Yannick himself, actually came out and talked about it. But then in that State of the Game, which was about a month or two later, he came out and said, in quote, "This year has been really rough. And, we're going to have to, scale this down to basically an apparel only event." He didn't use the word scale down, but it appears that that's exactly what was done. The content was scaled down to an apparel only event because of challenges. And COVID affected a lot of people in different ways. So, it's not a surprise that this most likely happened. If you look at even in the gaming industry, a lot of other games have received, delays. A lot of other games have received postponement. So much has happened. And so it made sense in that, context that there would be possibly something that would affect the division, because the team had also had to, go home, follow regulations, and most likely productivity basically slowed down. And if you even wanted to think about it, they were most likely working on some other project. And this is not Avatar, because Avatar has had its own team. Actually, they were the first to actually move to the new building. I see a lot of people conflating, oh, the devs are leaving a skeleton crew to work on the division. Oh my goodness. Well, ladies and gentlemen, one of the best things that we try to do here as content creators is to try to, follow a lot of what the development team is doing. So if you guys don't know, Massive actually bought a very new building and, started to move their team there. And the Avatar team started to move there before everybody else to start working on their game while they were also hiring. So that team is actually quite unique from other teams within the studio. Also, with the Star Wars project announced too, nothing has been set in stone. No one, has said anything about the progression of the game. In fact, the reports that came out in the news did mention that the project is so early, they're still hiring for it. So if you look at these two, saying Avatar has its own team, they're still hiring for the Star Wars project, well, it goes to show that a majority of the team is working on something that is not been announced, or something that's not even been discussed. Potentially, maybe the Division 2, the Division franchise, maybe year 3 content or something down the line. But that's, another conversation for another video. So what was promised? What were the expectations from players, and how can both of them be compared, and what will the result be? That's my goal for this video, just to see where we are, in this conversation. The answers are quite simple, because everything was mentioned in that State of the Game. They talked about the optimization station. Then the cost reduction was not even considered. I think what was actually proposed was that on a PTS, and they talked to people about going to test out the system. And I think they mentioned something along the lines of, many people aren't going to be able to have the time to actually test out what that feels like in a unique sense. Basically how the optimization station feels, because they're not going to blow a lot of those hours in the PTS, but they still put it out there, to just try to let the community have a feel for it. And, all those conversations went along the line. A lot of people were necessarily not even interested in the optimization station anyways. I mean, many of us have grinded our gear. We knew how to get gear for what we needed to build. And so it didn't necessarily, make for anything more than just a minor quality of life change. But if you kind of think about all of this together, I still continue to see a lot more expectations that were not necessarily addressed, meaning the developers never promised some of these things, but it seems like they're being demanded and being used, or in a sense, weaponized against the work that's been done for Title Update 12.1. And some of those, maybe they're coming from a place of sarcasm, or maybe from a place of, some people just want to troll, or perhaps will never be satisfied, which is a reality. I'm not saying that it's anything wrong with that, but it's hard to please everyone. But it's coming from this place where, some folk are saying, well, there's no new content. And, for that, then this patch seems to be meaningless in a sense. Well, the patch never said that any new content was going to come. In fact, the patch, it was announced that, yes, there would be new content or a holiday event, in quote, using Kingsley College, but that was actually scrapped and canceled. So the expectations were set. Another thing, too, is, no new content all this while. It seems like the developers have basically abandoned the game. And to that, I want to go ahead and say, okay, if we're going to judge the Division according to that standard, why don't we bring out the other RPG looter shooters or looter shooters to the front of all of this and kind of do some comparison and see, if there's a value proposition in the Division's own content release, the cost and the time and window in which they release the content. And so the closest thing that I can do is basically, point to Destiny 2 and say, okay, Destiny 2 has basically brought out 2 major expansions, I think, around the time that the Division has been out. I know they brought Shadowkeep because I purchased Shadowkeep. It ran me almost $50 to buy that expansion. And then they also have brought out, I think, another 1 or 2 following. But I know that, Destiny has basically charged at least $100 worth of expansions since the game has come out. If you wanted to actually add maybe year 1 and year 2 expansions to the Division, you're not going to still meet that, you're not going to meet that monetary, standard, in the sense that you didn't spend that much, buying DLCs for the Division. I mean, this is not a matter of saying maybe you bought the gold edition or like the deluxe edition, and perhaps then you spent a little bit more money. But if you bought like the standard edition, or maybe you got it at a minimal price, and then, you went ahead and got the year 1 DLC, which maybe put you at the gold edition, that was about $80 in total. So base game, which is full of content, by the way, and then Warlords of New York at $30, or maybe at a sale, I think the content that we got for that price point is actually sufficient, especially when you compare it to what Destiny is basically promising, or what Destiny was able to actually give to its own audience, especially with some of the things that I've been reading from Destiny players. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Destiny is in any kind of trouble, but I've seen a lot of players say, with the sunsetting of things in the game, in terms of weapons, in terms of content, that has not necessarily boded well for a lot of players. Whereas in the Division here, all we've had is basically new missions being added. We've had seasons that have also, basically joined up to add more gear, more weapons, and you don't have to buy those seasons as well. You can still farm for those items and get them just for your time. So when we look at them, we ask ourselves, this new content demand, at what cost is it going to come? Because, the way these companies do stuff, it's kind of like, they're going to make this content, but someone's got to pay for it. And so, yes, we may argue that Destiny 2 is free to play, but, well, it became free to play. It already had to, enjoy its own initial sales at launch. So you can still make that argument nonetheless. Look at Warframe. Do they add content at a whim, or do they take their time to add content annually or plan their content releases? Because if we were to kind of go with, okay, the Division's own calendar, when was the last time we received a major content update? That was in March of 2020. So what does March of 2021 look like? I think that's the valid question that we should be asking. Is the Division community going to be seeing some new content by the 1 year, in quote, mark, or are we going to be getting an announcement for a new game? I think that's a fair assessment that really does show our understanding of the game. sorry to say, but a lot of the demands necessarily don't show kind of an understanding of what our game brings to the table, because we know Massive is very strict on their schedule. We understand exactly what it is that they're trying to actually portray and they're trying to achieve. And so, yes, sometimes we may get impatient, but it doesn't necessarily, I would say, negate the fact that there is something usually in line. And today, in today's world, it's very challenging to determine exactly what it is that you're going to be doing as a game development studio. You may be delaying a game. Look at Outriders, delayed multiple times. Look at Cyberpunk, failed because of, lack of good management on the forefront. I mean, exactly. But then, when you think about everything else, lack of good communication and transparency, and then most likely lack of time that did them in to not be able to optimize their console version. And they brought out a broken game. And I think some of these things have affected the Division 2, because a lot of people said they were going to forget about the Division once Cyberpunk came out, but then Cyberpunk came out and was busted, and now the Division has received another set of hyper focus. And so we're seeing a lot of comments, a lot of sentiment pour in, and it's nice to be able to take all of that and channel it to the right place. So when we see these kinds of sentiments in the community, the best thing for us to do is just basically kind of understand, okay, where are we? Where did the developers say we're going to be? And have they actually delivered on what they've said? And in my opinion, I think they have. They said they were going to do this way. They've done it. So the expectations right now and the reality do match. I think this is a good sign. That's just my own opinion. And I think it's probably laying the groundwork for the developers to, bring in and introduce new content down the road. Now, maybe we won't see a year 3 content. Maybe this is the end of the line. But again, this is such a different franchise that, who's to say that we're not going to be seeing another game in the near future. But like I said, that kind of conversation is best for another and suited for another video. And we'll be able to talk about it very soon. But for now, I'm going to leave you, and I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. So far, what do you think? I think we're in a good spot. I mean, I don't know. Some people may disagree, but still, I would love to hear your thoughts nonetheless, and in the comment section, go ahead and leave those comments. Hopefully, we'll talk in another video. Thank you very much for your time and audience. Peace.